Welcome back to Why Walking Matters, the Science Explained. I'm Tatiana, your host. When we think about walking, we typically picture a neighborhood stroll, a walk in the park, or maybe a hike on a trail. But this past weekend, I found myself walking for a completely different reason. I attended the inaugural Jamaican Day Parade in Brooklyn, New York. I wasn't there to exercise. I wasn't even counting steps. I wasn't trying to hit a fitness goal. I was there to celebrate culture, music, food, and community. Yet, by the end of the day, I'd spent hours on my feet, and it got me thinking, as usual. Some of our most meaningful walks don't happen because we're trying to exercise. They simply happen while we're living our lives. So today we're exploring the many ways people walk around the world, from parades and festivals to open street events and community walking traditions. We'll look at how cities and communities create opportunities for walking that feel more like celebrations than workouts. Because sometimes the best way to walk more is to stop thinking about walking as exercise. And we'll see what the science says. Let's get into it. Behavioral scientists have found that people are more likely to stick with physical activity when they enjoy it. Research on exercise motivation shows that enjoyment, social connection, and a sense of personal meaning are strongly associated with long-term participation. In other words, when movement feels rewarding rather than obligatory, people tend to do more of it. And we've talked about this before, listeners, definitely in the episode about walking consistently and how habits form. A 2012 systematic review of exercise motivation research found that autonomous and intrinsic forms of motivation are consistently associated with exercise participation and long-term adherence. And a 1997 study found that enjoyment, competence, and social interaction motives predicted exercise adherence better than appearance-related motives. That's really interesting. More recent research continues to show that enjoyment is one of the strongest predictors of exercise persistence over time. I really think we did this before. We looked at this before, listeners, but for the purposes of today's episode, I want to go a little bit deeper into the 2012 study, Exercise, Physical Activity, and Self-Determination Theory. So this review examined 66 studies on exercise motivation through the lens of self-determination theory, or SDT, one of the most influential theories for understanding why people start and maintain physical activity. SDT proposes that people are more likely to stick with behaviors when they're motivated by autonomy, the feeling that the activity is their choice, by competence, feeling they're capable and successful, and by relatedness, feeling connected to others. The theory distinguishes between autonomous motivation, or exercising because you enjoy it or personally value it, and controlled motivation, exercising because of guilt, pressure, rewards, or external expectations. Here are the key findings. 1. Autonomous motivation is the strongest predictor of exercise. People who exercised because they enjoyed it, found it meaningful, or valued the benefits were far more likely to be physically active than those exercising because they felt pressured or guilty. Number 2, different motivations matter at different stages. The review found an interesting pattern. 1 identified regulation. For example, I walk because I value my health. That was especially important for getting started. Intrinsic motivation, example, I walk because I enjoy it, was more important for long-term adherence. In other words, people often begin exercising for practical reasons, but they continue when they learn to enjoy it. Number 3, feeling competent matters. People who felt successful and capable in their exercise routines were more likely to stay active. Competence was one of the most consistent predictors of exercise participation across studies. 4, enjoyment-based motives outperform appearance-based motives. Motives such as enjoyment, personal growth, and challenge were more consistently associated with sustained exercise than motives focused primarily on weight loss, appearance, or social approval. And finally, supportive environments help. When instructors, coaches, healthcare providers, or walking leaders supported people's autonomy, offering choice, encouragement, and respect, participants showed stronger motivation and higher activity levels. So what does this mean? People are most likely to keep walking when they move beyond I should walk and toward I want to walk. Research suggests that long-term walking habits are strengthened when walkers choose the routes they enjoy, when they walk with people they like, when they feel successful rather than judged, when they focus on personal benefits they value, and when they discover aspects of walking that are genuinely pleasurable. The science suggests that lasting exercise habits aren't built on guilt or pressure. They're built on choice, enjoyment, and feeling capable. Many people start walking because they want better health, but they keep walking because they discover they actually like it. Think about it. Many people struggle to convince themselves to take a 30-minute walk, but they'll happily spend 3 hours at a street fair, or an afternoon at a cultural festival, or a morning exploring an open streets event, or even a day attending a parade. But the movement is the same. The experience, however, is completely different. When walking becomes part of a social, cultural, or community experience, it often stops feeling like exercise and starts feeling like fun. And that's important because consistency is often easier when the activity is enjoyable. Or more specifically, when it starts feeling like you're having fun and enjoying yourself rather than doing something that you feel you're obligated to do. Here in New York City, one of my favorite examples is Summer Streets. Each summer, major streets are temporarily closed to vehicle traffic and open to walkers, runners, cyclists, performers, artists, and families. What is normally a busy roadway becomes a giant public space where people can move freely and experience the city in a completely different way. You can walk, you can jog, dance, people watch, or simply explore the city. The event is part of a larger movement known as Open Streets, which reimagines streets as places for people rather than just vehicles. Summer Streets includes free cultural programming, fitness classes, performances, art installations, and community activities. What's fascinating is that many attendees probably don't think of themselves as exercising. They're just having a good time. Yet many accumulate thousands of steps in the process. To understand where many Open Streets events came from, we need to travel to Bogotá, Colombia. More than 50 years ago, Bogotá began an event called Ciclovía. Every Sunday and holiday, approximately 75 miles of streets are closed to cars and opened to people. Walkers, runners, cyclists, roller skaters, and families take over the streets and transform them into a massive public recreation space. Today, hundreds of thousands and often more than 1 million people participate regularly. The concept has become one of the most successful public health and active living initiatives in the world. By the way, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. And if you're a loyal listener, welcome back. And if you're a loyal listener, you'll know that I love a good story. Well, here's a good story about how Open Streets began in Bogotá. From elpais.com. On Sunday, December 15, 1974, Bogotá was a party. That day, at 9 a.m., the Great Bicycle Demonstration began, organized by 3 young men, Jaime Ortiz, Fernando Caro, and Rodrigo Castaño, who dreamed of giving bicycles a place in the capital. In the 1970s, as in other South American capitals, the American urban model was rapidly taking hold. Cars, asphalt, and long commutes along avenues. Organized under the banner of Procicla and with the authorization of the Bogotá mayor's office, the 3 pioneers closed Carrera Septima, Carrera 11, and Carrera 13 between Calle 72 and Calle 13. Thus, the eastern and central parts of the capital were transformed into a Bogotá no one had imagined. For 3 hours, citizens could ride bicycles, rollerblades, or skateboards through the streets without fear of being run over, and with the option of a ride of up to 14 kilometers, much longer than the timid laps around the block they had been previously allowed. This demonstration was the seed from which Bogotá's Ciclovía was born, a recreational space that now spans 127 kilometers and is open on Sundays and holidays from 7 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Jaime Ortiz, now 78 and living in an apartment in the north of the capital, spreads out a huge flyer on his dining room table announcing the demonstration. Cyclists to the streets, it reads. My colleagues and I were looking for a symbol of environmental discourse, civil rights, and ethics. The bicycle summed that up, Ortiz recalls half a century later. It was easy for the bicycle to click in Bogotá, explains Julian Alfonso, historian and researcher of the history of cycling in Colombia. On the other hand, the Vuelta a Colombia the country's most important road cycling competition, had been gaining fans for 20 years. On the other, the bicycle was a work tool for farmers. Furthermore, the price of not only the bikes themselves, but also the parts imported to assemble them gradually decreased. It's not that there weren't cyclists before the Ciclovía or bike path, but rather that their use was clandestine. They didn't receive any attention. The 1974 demonstration gave the steel horse its due. That day was a turning point in the collective imagination of Bogotá residents, recalls Jaime Ortiz, as he rummages through dozens of newspaper clippings, photographs, and documents from that December 15th in a cardboard folder labeled Ciclovía, bike path. The press was generous. On Monday, December 16th, the newspaper El Espectador, under the headline The Bicycle Obsession of the Future, published a chronicle of the day, lavishing praise. The photos taken demonstrate that Bogotá cyclists are numerous, and yet they lack dedicated bike lanes and are therefore at risk of losing their lives, wrote Mike Ferrero Núñez. In the newspaper El Tiempo, Rodrigo Palacios reported that the cycling plebiscite was attended by dozens of elderly people, housewives, managers, government officials, children, hippies, and domestic workers. He recounted chants such as "Down with pollution, long live clean air." On Monday, Bogotá was a horror again, Ortiz recalls. The experiment was only repeated 10 months later, on October 12, 1975. Meanwhile, the group continued its activism from the Ciclopedia store, where Ortiz sold bicycles and gave talks about them. Fortunately for everyone, the mayor's office decided that the phenomenon deserved special attention. So they conducted a study at the transit department, asked for my advice, and that study is what led to the 2 decrees of 1976, he recounts. The regulations mandated that starting Sunday, June 20th, 1976, Sundays and holidays would be designated as bike lanes, with 4 circuits totaling just over 15 kilometers. University City, El Tunal, National Park, Funicular, and the North Circuit. Mayor Luis Prieto Ocampo was taken aback, Ortiz objects. The previous plan was to close 7th Avenue and 13th Street, and he opted for smaller circuits. The bike path's existence was intermittent in its early decades. After the 1976 decrees, it slowly weakened until it disappeared, not to be revived until 1982. That year, Mayor Augusto Ramirez Ocampo, in a process supported by Ortiz, relaunched it with 56 kilometers and recreational activities along Carrera Septima. It was later expanded to 81 kilometers and offered aerobics and other free outdoor activities to citizens. And since the bike path has grown to reach its current length of 127 kilometers and more than 500,000 users. I love that. One journalist described it as, "We build a new city every Sunday." And perhaps most impressively, cities around the world have borrowed the idea. So if you've ever attended an Open Streets event, there's a good chance Bogotá helped inspire it. Walking isn't just exercise in some places. It's tradition. And one of the most fascinating examples comes from the Netherlands. The Avond Verdagse. And forgive me, Netherlanders, if I've butchered the name. The Avondverdaagse, or Four Evening Walks, is one of the largest walking events in the Netherlands. Each year, more than 500,000 participants, many of them children, walk together over 4 evenings. What started as a local event has grown into a national tradition that has connected generations for more than 80 years. Participants walk with classmates, friends, parents, and neighbors. There are medals, celebrations, community gatherings, but most importantly, there is walking. A recent article about the tradition noted that Dutch children often walk 5 to 10 kilometers each evening while socializing with family and friends. The event is viewed as both a community celebration and a way to make physical activity a positive experience. What's remarkable is that the walking isn't the attraction, the shared experience is. The walking simply becomes part of the culture. From TheGuardian.com, Dutch children are unusually happy and healthy. Is it because of this walking ritual? I shouldn't have been surprised that the rain didn't stop the Dutch kids. All day it had been thunderstorming, and the forecast didn't look so great for the evening. And yet, at 5 p.m., hundreds of kids started arriving, many by bike, with their parents to Amsterdam's Westerpark, a beloved city park that caters to a more residential area of the capital. Today, it functions as a starting point. Volunteers coordinate registration, and groups of children gather, decked out in raincoats and eager to embark on either a 5-kilometer or 10-kilometer excursion around the surrounding neighborhoods. It's the second night of a Avondverdaagse, which literally means 4-day evening walk, organized by a group of neighborhood volunteers. It's not a race, but if children complete every night, they get medals, a bouquet of flowers, and if they're lucky, a lot of sweets. It's not just Amsterdam. Across villages, towns, and cities in the Netherlands, hundreds of thousands of Dutch people are doing the same every year. Kids spend 4 evenings in early summer exploring their neighborhoods with their school friends and parents as part of the week van der Waakse. Some places had celebrated earlier. Others were walking the following week. A variation of the tradition has even made its way to Suriname, one of the Dutch former colonies. There are also 4-day cycling and swimming events. According to the Royal Dutch Walking Association, which helps coordinate the events, 500,000 people take part every year in 700 locations across the country, powered by tens of thousands of volunteers. I think that would be a great guest to have on the podcast, listeners. Avondverdaagse originated from military ideology, explains Inger Leemans, professor of cultural history at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam and a researcher at the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. The first march was held in 1909 as a military training event, but when the Second World War broke out, different towns started to organize their own walks for soldiers. After the war, citizens were invited to walk along with them. The 4-day marches grew into an immensely popular event where tens of thousands of soldiers and citizens walked in solidarity. Aimed at older crowds, this is now the largest walking event in the world, with 45,000 participants from more than 80 countries walking the same 30-kilometer, 40-kilometer, and 50-kilometer routes each year. The Avondverdaagse is like the event's little brother or sister, mainly aimed at primary school children and their parents. It is interesting that this walk, with its military origins, grew into one of the national identity markers for the Dutch, a country that does not often self-represent as a military nation, says Limans, who also participated in the tradition when she was growing up in Lint, a village near the Belgian border. Most people now see it as a national event, comparable to other festivities such as King's Day, a national holiday to celebrate the Dutch monarch's birthday, involving street parties, flea markets, and lots of orange apparel. Avon Verdagsel even has its own traditional delicacy, half an orange, topped with a white Wilhelmina peppermint and wrapped in a piece of muslin for kids to suck on as they walk. Many children were enjoying one along the route. That's so cool, listeners. Avon Verdagsel has become a way to motivate kids to enjoy being outside and moving their bodies. It's important that children are physically active and can develop their motor skills from a young age, explains San de Vries, professor of physical activity in childhood at Leiden University Medical Center. Encouraging children to go through the whole week of walking, rain or shine, and rewarding them at the end can help build a positive association with physical activity. Positive emotion that sticks is important. It also helps build resilience. It's been presented to them as a big challenge because it's 5 kilometers and it sounds super hard, says Fernanda Gomes, 44, who is walking the shorter route with her 7-year-old daughter, Alicia, who is snacking on the traditional orange as we speak. Even if it's raining, they do it, and the message behind it is very great for children. Dutch kids are consistently judged to be some of the happiest in the world. This year, a UNICEF report again ranked them number 1 out of 44 Western countries for overall well-being and for mental health. Rich social relations were cited as a key factor. Research has shown that Dutch children have strong connections with their peers. In addition, many Dutch parents work part-time, so have more time to spend with their children. Children also have increased independence. Parents let their kids roam more freely, and many start young, cycling to and from school by themselves. These social relations are at play at Avon Verdagsel. The walks are a chance for children to spend time with not only their parents, but also their school friends outside the classroom. Some even have matching shirts to represent their school. I find that very cool. And especially for kids, because it's important that they get out and move around. So what do a Jamaican Parade, Summer Streets, Ciclovía, and the Avon Verdagsel all have in common? They make movement meaningful. The research on physical activity consistently shows that people are more likely to participate when activities provide social connection, enjoyment, community, purpose, and a sense of identity. Walking events check all those boxes. People come for the music, the food, the culture, the friends, the celebration, and the steps are almost a bonus. And perhaps that's one lesson we can all learn. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to exercise. What if instead we focused on participating, attending events, exploring communities, celebrating culture, supporting local organizations, experiencing something new? Often, the walking takes care of itself. But don't feel intimidated. You don't have to travel to Colombia or the Netherlands to find creative ways to walk. Look around your own community. You might discover cultural festivals, street fairs, farmers markets, open streets events even. There might be community walks or heritage celebrations, charity walks, art walks, holiday parades, neighborhood festivals. Many of these events happen throughout the year and provide an opportunity to accumulate thousands of steps without ever feeling like you're working out. So the next time you're looking for a reason to walk, don't just ask, where should I walk? Ask, what's happening nearby? The answer might lead you somewhere far more interesting. So listeners, walking doesn't always have to look like exercise. Sometimes it looks like a parade. Sometimes it looks like a festival. Sometimes it looks like a city street transformed into a giant playground. And sometimes it looks like a community coming together around a tradition that has lasted for generations. The beautiful thing about walking, as I always say, is that it meets us where we are. It can be exercise, it can be transportation, it can be meditation, it can be celebration. So this week, I have a challenge for you listeners. Find one event in your community, a festival, a parade, a farmer's market, and go. Not to get your steps or burn calories, just to participate. Then see how much walking happens along the way. And share your story with me at whywalkingmatters.com. And if you have topic ideas, you can share it at whywalkingmatters.com. It's been my pleasure again talking and learning with you this week, listeners. Until next time, keep walking, keep exploring, and keep discovering why walking matters.